I just want to put things in perspective and clarify things. So give me an example of somebody calling in and saying this is unauthorized, and then you do an investigation and go, it's actually authorized. Can you just, I mean, let's get away from the buzzwords and get it down to like an example. Okay, one of the banks give me that example. Yeah. Do I have to call on somebody? Mr. Monaco.
Thank you, Senator. So
put the mic a little bit closer so I can hear you.
I'm sorry, sir. We investigate every claim individually, right?
Okay, give me an example of somebody saying this was unauthorized, and you investigate and go, no, it was authorized.
An example would be during the course of the investigation, you can verify that, in fact, it was that customer that initiated the transaction through the use of their mobile device or their computer.
That's not giving me a whole lot of greater detail.
So they you can verify they pushed the button.
Mr. Vancini, can you give me a little bit better example of that versus just authorized versus, you know, they said it was unauthorized, and then you say it was authorized.
Yes, Senator, I think I can give you some better examples of that. So like the other banks up here, we investigate every single claim that comes in. We start with the benefit of the doubt that it is a fraud claim, so that's how it originally gets classified. Through the course of a conversation, you can find a lot of different things that would make it an unauthorized transaction. In some instances, the customer might have made the transaction and forgotten they've made it. They see a transaction they think is unfamiliar, so they're calling it about that. In other instances, it might be a joint account, and you might have
husband versus a wife.
Husband versus wife. You see, you know, your wife has made a transaction on that account. You don't recognize it. You call in. Those are some of the things that can occur in that situation. Mr. Monaco articulated there's other instances that we use as well, where we use robust tools behind the scenes to identify is that the phone, the IP, the device, the location that has been used, and we can talk through that and recognize that that was a transaction that was.
I'm assuming all consumers are not necessarily angels either, and they may have regretted paying somebody, and they just want to recover a payment they didn't want to make, even though they authorized it.
Unfortunately, in some instances, that is the case where it's a false claim, and the customer is really looking for reimbursement for a payment. So
the figure I used at the beginning of the hearing, excuse me, that credit card fees are somewhere on the order of $160 billion a year. Is that pretty accurate? 160. So that's, again, so that $160 billion is paid by consumers. So I would think banks would prefer consumers use the credit cards because you make a lot of money at it, right? $160 billion worth. The unreimbursed payments here, we're talking about $160 million. Again, if you're defrauded, feel sorry for you, but they're using Zelle because it's free, correct? And a lot of people, I mean, I need you guys to volunteer some things, okay? Correct? I mean, it's free. Let's talk about the security of, for example, choosing to use Zelle so you don't have to walk around with $300 in your pocket that you could get robbed and be out $300. Or if you're scammed on the street, you can't recover the $300. Let's talk about checks. You know, the security of checks. Are banks required to reimburse their customers when somebody fraudulently gets them to make out a check? Now, you can do a stop payment because it's not instantaneous, but once it's gone through, are banks under any requirement to reimburse somebody for a check they wrote out to a fraudster? Mr. Monaco.
No, sir. No, sir, they're not.
So, Ms. Felcher, you actually did a pretty good job of laying out screenshots of the steps that consumers have to go through before they actually press authorize this. Why don't you describe that again? Because I didn't know that. I was actually pretty impressed. I mean, I'd be actually annoyed if I want to transfer money. Got to go through 3 screens or more. Describe what that process is of actually authorizing and sending. Okay.
Thank you, Senator, for that question. So we take a multi-pronged approach to educating and protecting our customers from fraud and scams. It starts even before our customers actually go to use Zelle. So we have a lot of education that we do on our own site, on chase.com, a security center. We also do a lot of education within our 4,800 branches. But in the Zelle
go through the steps of somebody actually doing a transaction, what a pain in the butt it kind of is.
Yes. So when a customer actually goes in to perform a Zelle transaction, once a month, we serve up a scam warning to all our customers, letting them know about
First
the
of all, they
common
need
scams.
to know who that person is, right?
Yes. So
I mean, somehow they've got it input in the system who they're making a transfer payment to. So I think the easiest way is if they've done it repeatedly, it's a known, person. So what if it's a new one? Is there a separate system where, okay, here's a guy, here's your customer who's made transfers on Zelle before, multiple times the same person, that's probably one process. But if it's a brand new one, is there an additional step now in terms of security? So again, step me through this.
if there is a new recipient, we are flashing up and making sure that the customer does intend to actually send the money to that intended recipient.
So you're already warning somebody, hey, this is somebody totally new. Are you sure you want to send it to this, and is this the right person?
This is the name of that person. We also employ what we call dynamic limits. And so if the recipient and the sender do not have a previous relationship, or we don't have a lot of information on that recipient, we will actually lower the limit of how much the customer is able to send. We also, if a transaction looks suspicious to us, we pop up other warnings. We might ask, what is the purpose of that payment? And if they select to buy goods and services, we will pop up another screen to say, Zelle should not be used to purchase goods on online marketplaces, for example. It's not to buy puppies. These are the common scams. The customer actually has to consent and click a box that says they have read the warning and they still want to proceed.
So if you can indulge me for one more question. So this is bank account to bank account. So are the scammers, are they just opening up and closing down bank accounts really fast? Transferring money, you know what I'm saying? Because otherwise, if somebody reports a scam, you ought to be able to recover that if the money's sitting there. So what do the scam artists do? I mean, how rapidly do they change over accounts?
Well, at Chase, when we identify that there is a scammer, we will immediately take action to exit the relationship and report that to EWS.
Do you seize their assets in the account, or again, do they just flush the dollars out very quickly? Again, then they just set up a new account, and they, again, how rapidly do they do that?
Well, often scammers will move quickly because they know we'll be quick to catch them, and so they will often move the money out quickly from the account.
I mean, on a daily basis, weekly, or?
I'm not sure exactly on that, but I will say the action that is taken prevents that scammer from accessing the Zelle network beyond that.
Okay, well, they just set up a new account. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Senator. Senator Hassan.
Well, thank you, Chair Blumenthal, and to the